Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is your boy Fitzmonk TV here, aka GLauren33. I'm back with another video on the channel for you guys today. And today we are doing something pretty special here. I am explaining the ending of My Hero Academia's final chapter, chapter 430, for you guys today. There's been a lot of talk about My Hero Academia's manga ending. Well, My Hero Academia, there's been a lot going on with the franchise as a whole. The anime is in the middle of the final war arc right now. I know there's been a delay in a couple episodes releasing because of the Olympics, but we had that going on. They just had the Your Next, the fourth official movie just came out. And of course, the manga just finished up earlier this week. And you guys remember, if you guys have been long-term subscribers, we used to talk about the My Hero Academia manga here every single week in the past. And I thought I at least owed it to you guys here to talk about the final chapter, give you guys my thoughts, and explain it. I know there's been some confusion over the ending of the manga here and some of the stuff that happened. So I'm going to do my best to explain it to you for you guys in this video. First off, I would say my initial thoughts of the ending of My Hero Academia is, of course, this series has been going on for 10 years. Like, I was in middle school when this series first started. And to see it come full circle now, I definitely think it was a good ending. At least I'm talking about in terms of the final chapter. The end of the war arc and the epilogue was rushed, in my opinion. You could kind of tell that Horikoshi did want to wrap things up, right? And I think they could have, at least given this 3, 4, 5 extra chapters to, really flesh out some of this stuff that they need to with the epilogue, because it does feel like a rush ending. Like, Deku defeats All For One, right? And then really there's about 3 or 4 chapters after that. You find out he doesn't have One For All anymore, right? And all he has left is the Embers. And then, they kind of rush towards things. Like, they try to wrap things up quick with, like, the League of Villains. And then, them going back to school, right? And, kind of, being this, now this inspiration for the incoming class of UA. And then all these other people around the world, as other people saw what they did in the final war arc, right? And then you get to this final chapter where we get an 8-year time skip now to Deku and everybody as adults, as they're early in their pro hero career, right? And we get to see what happens to everyone, right? And definitely they do leave the door open for a potential sequel. I don't know if we will get that from Horikoshi. We do know he is working on another work, but we just don't know if it's a My Hero Academia sequel, right? With, Deku and company as adults. But the door is left open for a future sequel, and I think that would be the next step for this franchise. But like I said, we don't know that here. But I do think the final chapter is a great one. It is a great one, and I'm going to explain it all to you here to you guys in just a sec. So it is a great final chapter. I just think the epilogue as a whole was just a little bit rushed, right? So, but I don't want to waste any time here. So, of course, we get this first page was, a color page, of course, of Deku in all class 1A, right? Still in school, but everyone's smiling after the war arc here. The good thing is just seeing Bakugo smile, man. Like, but you see everybody here, right? You also see, of course, All Might, and Izawa, even they are smiling. But yeah, so we go into it. This is 8 years later, right? And we come to find out that Deku is now a teacher at Class 1A. That he is a teacher at UI High. So we know Deku lost his quirk officially after the war arc. Slowly, the embers of One For All fell away, similar to All Might. Right, but they gradually left Deku a little bit slower because Deku wasn't doing hero work afterwards. Remember, All Might lost his embers after his final battle, or his second to final battle, because we all know of Iron Might, but his second to final battle with All For One, way back earlier in the series, right, which rushed him losing his embers. Deku, lost his embers after transporting One For All to All For One to defeat him. And then, of course, after All For One was defeated and killed, Deku was left with the embers, and they stayed with him for a little bit because um he wasn't doing hero work at that time. So they just gradually left, him as time went on. So 8 years later, Deku is back to being quirkless. He's a full-grown adult at this point, but he's decided to become a teacher. We see Koda, right? If you guys remember Koda, of course, from the training camp arc way back when. Koda is now a student at UA, and he asks Midoriya, hey, or Deku Sensei, where are we meeting up for the practical exercise this afternoon? Deku tells the students at the bus stop. It will also be a lesson on how to get to USJ. We all remember USJ from the first arc of My Hero Academia. Deku gives a little bit of speech. Basically, remember the same speech from the first chapter. This is such a thing in all anime. It feels like in all manga, right? They usually always like to call back to the first chapter at the end. People are not born equal. Remember, that was Midoriya's first line when this all started. But his words are much different now based off the experiences he's had. And you can see a lot of scenes that took place after the war arc. So you can see Deku going back home with his mother. You can see All Might helping Gran Torino, who of course we know Gran Torino suffered great injuries during the war. Gran Torino is no longer a hero; he's just an old man. You can see Deku and company back in class. You can see Miko getting her, what's it called? Her robot arms, her prosthetic arms. A lot of stuff happened. You can see some of the pro heroes going back to work. Let me try to put the volume up here. You can see Koda and Eri having fun, having a little bit of a play date. You can see Tokoyami and Hawks hanging out. You can see Eraserhead and President Mike at I believe starts with a K. We all know, you guys know who I'm talking about. The League of Villains guy. Their old classmate at his grave, right? Lots of stuff happening here. You can see as time went on, the embers slowly leaving Deku. The embers of One for All. You can see Bakugo trying to pick up stuff with his injured right arm. You can see Midoriya and Ochako hanging out in the snow, which is usually representative of which is very symbolic in Japanese culture. Two people hang out in the snow is like supposed to be very romantic, even though it's never really confirmed in this chapter at all that Deku and Ochako actually ended up together. You can see Ida at their graduation a couple years later when they were graduating UA. You can see Bakugo and Monamo actually blasting off the stage. So a lot of cool events happening. Right, and Deku then explains, right, that even more, those voices encouraged me. There's no denying that on that day, I felt everyone's support, hopes, and prayers. If sparing a thought for someone else is the first step towards heroism, then on that day, everyone was a great hero. I was hardly cut out for that dream I held, but it came true for me anyway. And that tale began when my body took action before I could think. In that case, why am I still writing this? Because there are more pages yet to come. Then you get the time skip, right? And you guys all remember the first scene of My Hero Academia, or one of the first scenes is when Deku and Bakugo were in middle school before they went to UA, and their teacher asked them, what do you guys want to do? And they all raised their hands and said they want to become heroes. Even Deku, when he was quirkless at the time. And now you can see the next generation is doing the same thing. All right. You see some of the characters from the past, right? We see some of them what they're doing now. Like, of course, Hatsume became a huge designer. You can see Bravo and Gento. You can see they are coders now, right? And they made their own company, so you can see a lot of what everyone else is doing now, right? But we can see that Hero Society has changed since the war arc, right? And we see Dai, who he has made an appearance in the manga before. We see now that based someone kind of similar to Baku in a way. You can see the symbolism here, right? Dai wants to go to UA, and he has a quirk. He's not like Deku, who was quirkless around this time. But the thing about it is he's being made fun of because his quirk is not one that might be more of a struggle to make him a hero, right? Um, he basically says, gonna be kind of tough given your quirk, especially since the villain emergence rate is on the downturn, which means they're cutting back on the number of pro heroes. We're looking at an era where only the uber powerful can be heroes. So we're seeing a change now in society. There's not as big a need for pro heroes now because there's less villains now, right? Ever since the death of Shigaraki and All for One, there's less villains now. There still is villains, of course, always doing danger, but there's less need for villains now. But we see Dai says everyone's really changed. When we were little, every last one of us was nuts about All Might, Endeavor, Best Genius, Deku, Great Explosion, Murder God Dynamite, aka Bakugo, Shoto, and wanted to be like them. So you can see here, so a lot of people became inspired and motivated because of Deku, Bakugo, and Shoto, right? Even though they weren't official pro heroes yet, they were just in high school, right? What they did during the war, going up against Toya and All for One and Shigaraki, right? And basically they're the reasons that the heroes won and ended the war. Everyone took inspiration, and then a lot of kids at that time have now grown up and become older and now have looked up to them. Even though Deku's no longer a hero at this point, right? Because as Deku lost his quirk, you could see that still there's a lot of people that are inspired because of what they did. So Dai's walking, right? Similar to like Deku. Remember when Deku was walking through Japan with his backpack? Dai says, I get it. I'm the only one who never grew up. So when I'm feeling unsure of myself, I always come here. And he comes to a statue of All Might. Right. So they mentioned a lot of the work of some. You see here, we see a lot of what everybody from Class 1A, what they're doing now as heroes, right? So one of the things is we see that Ingnum, so Ida, Froppy, Yomo, and Otako basically have become a team. They've become a hero team. They've been going to elementary schools all across the nation. And even though they've seen a decline of the villain emergence rate and a broadening of a role that heroes play in society. So it's not just heroes are not meant just there to protect, but they're promoting a lot that now that heroes need to have a bigger role in society, not just focus on saving people and defeating villains, but also how society plays out so that society can be a better place for everybody, the people with quirks and people that are quirkless. So part of the expansion is the plan spearheaded by Ochako to expand access to quirk counseling, which is thought to be the most essential initiative of all this day and age. So you can see, and a lot of that motivation that Ochako has for quirk counseling is because, of course, of Ochako's relationship with Toga from the past. So we see Izawa, right? Izawa now he has much shorter hair, right, over the years, but he's still the same guy. He's like, hey, he shows Midoriya on the phone that Bakugo is about to fall down in the hero rankings again. Bakugo has not changed at all. You can see someone was filming him, and Bakugo loses his mind, and he's like, who said you could get up in my face? I ain't your entertainment. You want to die, pal? So Bakugo has not changed at all, right? He's still terrible when it comes to interacting with people and the media, which of course is not the best thing. He's the complete opposite of Shoto, who's really good with fans and the media. Yeah, and then we see now, and you can see a lot of Class 1A, even as adults, they all look a lot like they did in high school. Some of them are just a little bit taller now, but you'll see here when we get the end. Class 1A, even though 8 years later they're full-grown adults in their 20s now as pro heroes, they all pretty much look the same. But we see here that Shoto, like he's doing patrol during the day and during the night. And even though Shoto has a little bit of a socially awkward personality, he treats all his fans with equality and respect. And a lot of people are calling him just Shoto instead of referring him as Endeavor's son. We know, of course, Endeavor is retired at this point in the story, as we saw earlier. Whereas right here, Endeavor is now in a wheelchair, of course, from the results of the final war arc. So, and you could see some of the other members from Class 1B as well. You know, the Class 1A's rivals back in the day. They've all become heroes as well. He also mentions the other day. Togados will talk about Miro. So you can see there is a competition at the top of the rankings, but a lot of the heroes from back in the day from Class 1A and Class 1B. So Izawa asks Deku, does he miss it? Right? Does he miss being a hero and being out there with his classmates? Right? And Deku talks about even though he might be quirkless again, but as long as he made use of his experience, and he can use what he learned as a hero to encourage others, there's something kind of awesome about that. And you can see that Deku kind of asks, he's all like, "Hey, I'm pretty awesome, right?" And he's all totally ignores him. He says, "You need to be stricter with your students. I'm telling you, it matters." These days, the type of kids who make it here to learn from us are basically given a golden ticket to be future heroes. They have to be tough. Keep them humble so they don't get big heads. Understood? And Deku's like, but you were so nice to us, though, senpai. So yeah, it's funny that Izawa just totally ignores Deku, and he still has that same attitude. Like, yes, like I loved you guys, but you still have to be tough on your students. So then we see Deku walking through the streets. Another callback to the first chapter, right, to early in the show, right, and you could see there's a lot of Easter eggs here. I believe you can see these are some of the agencies of Deku's former classmates. They also made a statue of Class 1A in Japan, basically remembering, their battle in the final war. So Deku and the other Baku and all of them are, have their legacy basically displayed in Japan. One thing that did get misconstrued here by a lot of people is this line right here. And this came when the spoilers came out for this chapter. It says right here that, ever since we all started working, our time off never seems to line up. It's hard to plan get togethers. There was a lot of people who are saying that Class 1A just forgot about Deku, right? Once they graduated, they went on to become pro heroes, and because Deku was quirkless, they just forgot about him, which was one of the stupidest things I saw, especially when we get to the end of this chapter here in a little bit. Right? That didn't make any sense to me because basically it says, if use your brain for a second, when you're an adult and you have a job, right, it can be difficult to coordinate your own schedule with people that you're close with, your friends, your family, right? Because everyone has different schedules. Not everyone has to works a 9 to 5. People work overnights. People work in the mornings. You know what I mean? Not everyone has the same vacation time or the same days off. So the fact that everyone was like, "Oh, Class 1A just forgot about tech," I was like, "No, they didn't." Clearly it's because they all have busy hero schedules. It says right here that Todoroki works day and night. Tokoyami is a hero that works during the nighttime. That it makes more sense with his quirk. Like that was just something stupid that I was seeing on social media. That didn't make sense. But you can see, you can see they talk about Tokoyami and the toys that he's selling now, right? And you can see Kirishima, the Red Riot. They made something about his origin story, which I remember that for way back in My Hero Academia season 4, right? And you can see he's become very popular with males and boys, right? You could see that now little kids are talking about the Red Riot. Look, it's unbreakable, right? And you see Deku smiling at the success that his former classmates are having. Um, and Deku's like, I do get a real kick out of seeing everyone's success. And when I get to think about our time in school, I tend to come here. Talk about all my statue. And remember, Dai was at that same statue just a couple pages earlier. So pay attention to that. So, of course, Deku also remembers that was back when Deku first met All Might and was trying to save Baku from the sludge villain, right? But we see one of the kids, trips, and Deku, without thinking, right, goes to save the kid, right? Even though he doesn't have a quirk anymore, Deku, his body reacts faster than he can think because he sees someone in need. 8 years later, even though he no longer has his quirk, only almost a decade later, Deku still can't help but help those that are in need. So the kid thanks him, but then we see that Dai, who was also there, want to save the kid, and we see Deku, Ezekiel Midoriya. Whoa, you really exist! Holy cow! So remember, there's some people. The reason why this is an important line also is because remember, not everyone knows that Deku became quirkless. Right? It's not like there's a story that Deku goes around telling like, oh yeah, All Might gave me his quirk, and that's how I became a hero, and I lost it after the battle with All for One. Right? It wasn't like Deku made that story known to everybody. Right? Deku graduated high school and then kind of just disappeared. You know, he didn't become a pro hero like the rest of his friends because he no longer has his quirk. He doesn't have a quirk. So that's why Dai is very surprised, to finally meet Deku in person, So that's just like, whoa, you really exist. Holy cow. And then they talk a little bit. And Dai says, they say the times are changing fast and in big ways, so someone like me can't keep up anymore since I got a super whoopee quirk compared to my classmates, right? That's why I visit the All Might statue and ask him if I can become a hero like all of you did. And of course, that reminds us of the famous line when Deku first met All Might, can I become a hero too? So you're getting a complete role reversal of what happened in the past. Deku and All Might, now Deku and Dai. So you see, Deku is still exactly the same way as he was in the past, right? Studying and analyzing people's quirks and their powers and how they can use in battle. So Deku's like, your quirk allows you to throw those saucer-like objects from your hair, a hair-based quirk. Taking a clue from Mineta, because of course, remember Mineta was able to throw the balls, rapidly from his hair, right? That should be workable. You could stack them for boosted strength and maybe even change their size. Seems quite versatile. So he's muttering. So classic Deku, right? And that is like creepy but encouraging at the same time. Ever since my own dream came true, it's been my turn to plant dreams in others. So Deku did get to fulfill his dream. He became a hero. Even if it was only for about a year or so, Deku was able to become a hero. And Deku tells Dai, you'll be fine. After all, didn't you make an effort to reach out a helping hand just now? And then Deku tells Dai, you can be a hero. And you can see the All Might statue with a bunch of people doing All Might's famous pose, the Undertaker pose. Anyway, so you can see it's just like when All Might did what did to Deku. Deku does the same thing to Dai and inspires him. So Deku tells the kid, do your best. And Deku says, I'll be lying if I claim I didn't miss it all. But as long as I could still inspire and encourage others, then I'll say this is still the tale of how we became great heroes, right? And it's funny how at the beginning of the series, it was like, this is the tale of how I became the greatest hero. And then how, as we went deeper into the series, it changed to how Class 1A became the greatest heroes. And now that's how this is the tale of how we became great heroes, right? And this is where Deku ends it, right? He ends the story, but you can see someone grabbing the end, basically kind of breaking the fourth wall, and you see All Might grabbing it and crushing the end. And you can see 8 years have passed. All Might is a little bit older now, right? All Might's entering his elder years in life. You can see the bags and the wrinkles in his skin. Right, we don't know how old All Might is at this point. I'll probably have to search it up here, probably afterwards. But, you can see All Might is a little bit older now. Probably, let's say, late 50s, somewhere in his 60s now, right? I think. But Baku said, or All Might says, you're late, kid. And Deku says, I would have met you at the airport if I'd known. But All Might says, I've got a surprise for you. And basically, All Might says, the data obtained from the battle between me and All for One 8 years ago apparently opened up all sorts of exciting possibilities. Just as quirks themselves grow and deepen, so too does technology. You mastered using multiple quirks at once, so I want you out there giving us more data. Deku says this must cost a fortune. So basically, you can see they made a suit similar to Iron All Might's suit, right? They made a suit 8 years later that would now that technology has evolved and adapted so much more, right? They've been able to make a much more powerful suit than what All Might had when he faced All for One. And Deku says, "Damn, this must have cost a fortune. I can't take this." But All Might says that his overseas friend and young Hatsune came together to create this. And the project was funded by your old chums from Class A, led by Bakugo. Don't try to hide it. Your body still has a way of leaping into action, right? Take this to heart, kid. You've also earned this power fair and square. So if you remember back when All Might first gave Deku One for All, right? As Deku adapted with One for All as the series progressed, All Might told Deku, "You've earned this power and made it your own," you know? And now here we have another callback here in the last chapter. All Might once again telling Deku, "You've earned this power fair and square." So we learned at Class 1A, after they graduated high school, all these years, right? They have been taking part of what they've made as heroes, because we know heroes in this show do make a good amount of money, right? And remember, it's also a big callback for Bakugo. Bakugo has been leading the charge with all of Class A slowly giving a part of their paychecks so that they could fund this suit for Deku. So even though Deku no longer has a quirk, right? Deku can be a hero, thanks to technology, and now he can be out there as a hero and helping Hatsune and the future society evolve technology further for those who may not have quirks in the future, who could also be become heroes, and they can use this technology for good. So really, really good. And you can see Deku getting all emotional here, right? And then this is really big because one of the things that Bakugo says at the beginning of the show is Bakugo says in the early chapters, "I'm going to become a hero. I'm going to become the most popular hero, greater than All Might, make tons of money, and that everyone would know my name." Bakugo, with some of the money he's now made as a well-known hero, is giving back to Deku, a guy who he despised at the beginning of the show, who he viewed as a pebble, as worthless, a quirkless loser, and is now funding Deku's dream to once again become a hero. So you could really see. And then you could also see now Bakugo tells Deku, "Come on," because we hear, right? Remember, Hawks' goal is Hawks wanted a society that where heroes had more time to kill than ever, right? And what would that look like? Where heroes didn't have to be on patrol all the time, right? And we could see that actually comes true somewhat. And now, 8 years later, after the war, there's less villains more than ever, and heroes don't have to do as much. Now, we could that could change in the future, but for now, Class 1A and all the heroes have formed a society where, the heroes are not needed as much because there's less villains. But still, heroes are still going to be there whenever people are in need. So we hear that on the radio that traffic's all backed up because on land side, on the highway, they're requesting heroes to respond. And we see Deku as he is about to go into action. He has a vision of Toma Shigaraki, right? Who he said he would never forget. And then we get the last page of My Hero Academia is all of Class 1A in action, going together to go help with this landslide. So we see Deku reunite with the rest of Class 1A as they're all spending time together as heroes. Even though they're not going up against some villain, they're all working together to deal with this landslide on the highway, to work together. And they're all doing it, having fun, especially now more than ever they have Deku with them once again. And you get to see all Class 1A as adults. So like I said, almost everyone looks the same for the most part. Really, you can see why am I forgetting her name? Asuka. You can see she has much longer hair now, right? Shoto looks exactly the same, right? We can see Deku with his new armor funded by Class 1A. You can see, of course, Ochako. Her hair is much longer, but you can see she also has Deku's scarf on, right? So like we don't. It's never confirmed as that Deku and Ochaku got together, um, but still. I know a lot of the stands out there are pissed about that. Maybe they're hoping that in some kind of interview that Horikoshi will confirm that they got together. But you can see, and especially it's so good to see how happy Ochako and Shoto are to see that Deku is with them now. You can see the joy on Deku's face that he gets to be a hero again. You can see Bakugo with a nice grin on his face, right? As an adult, you can see. Thanks, Bakugo has a nice older look. He still looks exactly the same, but you can tell he is bigger and older, right? And even though he has to deal with that arm injury because he decided never to get a prosthetic arm, that's not stopping him. And you can see everywhere. You can see it looks like Mineta has a little bit of facial hair, right, as well, right? You can see Ida, Kirishima, everybody. As well, you can see even what's his name, Laser guy, Oyama. I don't know why I'm forgetting names right now. Maybe because it's like 1 a.m. at night. But you see, even he became a hero, even though he said he was going to leave the hero program. Of course, after he was revealed to be the traitor, he said, I need to start from the beginning. But you can see, even he became a hero and rejoined with his old classmates. You can see all of them. There's Suro. He has a nice little mustache, but you can see all of them became heroes. They all pretty much look the same, but they all became heroes at the end of the day. So there we go. So and it ends. This is the tale of how we'll keep reaching out to help for all time. My Hero Academia, the end. So the biggest thing coming out of this is, of course, Deku's ending, right? Deku becomes a hero. Deku's story comes full circle. He started quirkless, got a quirk, saved the world, right? Became known as one of the greatest heroes on Earth for ending the war, but he had the help of all of his classmates and everyone that believed in him with at that time. Then he becomes quirkless again, but with the help of his friends, even being quirkless, he becomes a hero at the end of the story. And while also becoming a teacher at Class UA at UA Academy or UA High. I don't know why I'm getting my words mixed up today. So, personally, if I'm being fully honest, I do kind of hate that Deku lost his quirk. I do hate that, right? I part of me feels like they could have done the excuse. If you guys remember, like the second the Heroes Rising movie, when Bakugo or Deku gives Bakugo One for All, right? They wrote themselves into a corner here because Deku's supposed to lose One for All, but their explanation is that Bakugo falls unconscious after the battle, and that's why the One for All transfer didn't complete, and Bakugo wakes up and almost forgets what happens. So Deku gets One for All back. But I felt like they kind of could have applied that logic to Deku's battle with Shigaraki or with All for One. Like Deku transfers all of the quirks from all the past One for All users to All for One. So he loses everything. He uses the quirks and the vestiges, so he doesn't even have them with him. And then all he has left is the embers of One for All, and then he loses One for All. So I feel like what they could have done is Deku gives everything to All for One, and then after he defeats him, the explanation is, Deku defeated All for One so quickly after giving One for All, after transferring One for All over, that Deku, that the transfer was never made complete. So when All for One died, One for All actually just went back to Deku. I felt like that's how you could have written yourselves out of making Deku quirkless again, right? And I kind of, one of the things I hate is you never really get to see Deku get that final interaction with the vestiges. Like they all get transferred over and they just tell Deku like, good luck, kid, right? Finish it, right? Finish what we started, and that's that. Which I hate that, but it is great to see that Deku does get to become a hero again, even though he is quirkless, so, but, I kind of wish Deku got to keep One for All. That's just my thing. And I just feel like the epilogue is rushed, right? But it is cool to see that, Deku does truly never does forget Shigaraki. Like, he never does forget. Like, even though they're all gone, because of course the vestiges all die with All for One, right? Everything was destroyed. One for All's gone. Everything, right? But it is cool to see that Deku truly never forgets Shigaraki, even all these years later. And even in the last panel here, you get to see Shigaraki, or Deku has a vision, or Deku has a vision of Shigaraki here. I don't know if I can drag it over here near the end, but still, it is an emotional ending. It is a cool way to end My Hero Academia with seeing Class 1A as adults and they fully become heroes, and Deku gets to join them here. And we can theorize a lot about Deku's armor suit. There's a lot we could theorize about it, right? It looks similar to his old outfit, but of course you can tell it's armored until we see this colored, or until Horikoshi gives us a more explanation. Maybe when we get the final My Hero Academia volume here in a couple months, right? We'll be able to know more about it, but we don't know what powers are in the suit. But remember, 8 years have passed since All Might fought All for One with his armored suit, so we gotta assume that a lot's happened. The suit is far stronger, far stronger than All Might's suit was, right? And you think that since Class 1A helped fund it and Hatsumi helped build it, that it has now a lot of similarities to Deku's old powers, right? It's not gonna have the power one for all, but maybe stuff like Black Whip, Gear Shift, right? Danger Sense, has powers that are similar to Deku's old quirks they have with One for All. That Deku will, and of course, that Deku will be able to use and have familiarity with. Plus, knowing Deku's kind of a perfectionist, and Deku studies and analyzes everything. So Deku's gonna want to learn every single tad bit of the suit and make this power truly his own. Of course, we don't know the limits, but one thing that I think would be really really cool for Horikoshi to do here, I think after My Hero Academia the anime ends, whenever that is, which I think will probably be maybe a little over a year from now, depending on where season 7 ends. Season 8 will probably be, almost certainly be, the final season of My Hero Academia, right? Because where they are in the anime right now, depending on when you're watching this video, we're just past, of course, when Bakugo dies and Deku starts his final battle with Shigaraki, and All for One just started rewinding into his younger self, right? There's enough content that will get us through one more season, right? So probably a little over a year from now, right? A year and a half max, depending on when season 8 comes out, that will be the final season of My Hero Academia, and things will wrap up. I think what you need to do, or what they should do, what they should consider doing, is doing a final movie after the war arc. Do a final movie after the war arc, either with Deku as them as heroes now, right? So the fifth, or they do something after the war arc with Deku and the final embers of One for All, right? And you can have you can, now that what's his name? Korshiro is done with the manga, you can have him make the story for those final movies if they want, and then if then they could explain Deku's final moments with One for All, or just showcase everybody as adults if they want. Because I don't know, I do think like I said, they set up perfectly, everything perfectly for a sequel, with Deku and company as adults, and they can do things completely different, right? There's so many different directions they can do, especially because these Class 1A face so many challenges while they were in school, and most of My Hero Academia takes place only a little over a year into them being in the school. It's really just their first year of high school. All this stuff happens, everything with the war, all that stuff, right? But to now see them all as adults, right, and how those challenges made them stronger and better, I feel like that's what an adult series should show. And it would be interesting how they would do it. Would Deku still be the hero, or would Deku still be the main character, or would they have somebody else? Would it be them inspiring the next generation of future heroes. There's a lot that they could explore, right? My Hero, I've seen people throw like My Hero Agency, right? Um, but My Hero Plus Ultra, kind of like taking off like the Dragon Ball Super term of naming things. There's a lot that they could do, but I do think they have set themselves up for a sequel, and maybe Korishiro doesn't even write the sequel. Maybe he has somebody else that he trusts that can take over the series. Of course, we know there's multiple My Hero Academia spin-offs with the team up missions and like the My Hero vigilantes and all that. So there's directions that they could take, right? But at the end of the day, I do like the ending. Is it a perfect ending? No. And you see that a lot with manga nowadays. There's not a lot of endings that are like really, really good. I think out of like recent um popular manga that end, I think Demon Slayer got it really good with their ending. That they got it almost to a point, right? I think but I think for at least the chapter itself, it's a fantastic chapter to end the show. There's so many callbacks early in the series, and it does put a bow on Class 1A. And at least, even though Deku's quirkless, the fact that they were able to bring him back into the fold and let him become a hero again is great, right? And this final image with everybody on screen is a fantastic one, if you ask me. And the fact that All Might made it to the end of the show, the fact that All Might becomes an old man, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. At the beginning of the show, I always expected, when I first read this manga and the anime first came out, I always expected All Might to die. And he made it. He not only lost his quirk and survived, but he fought All for One without a quirk, right? With the Iron All Might suit, the armored All Might suit, survived that. I certainly thought that was when All Might was going to die, right? And then he survived that and got to see Deku defeat All for One, and made it still that 8 years later he's an old man and he's able to provide Deku with a chance to become a hero again with his own suit, right? So crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Like I would have never bet on All Might to make it all the way to the end, and I'm willing to bet that Kurishiro considered multiple times Horikoshi. I'm willing to bet he considered multiple times. I don't know why I'm messing his name up so much today, but I'm willing to bet multiple times he considered taking All Might out. I thought we all expected All Might not to make it to the end, but he does. He does, and no complaints here. But at the end of the day, I think this is a fantastic way to end the show, or the manga in terms of this chapter. The epilogue could have been better. And, I wish they didn't have rushed it so much, but still, this chapter is a love letter to the show. To this manga, and it is it's a great story, and at the end of the day it is a really, really well done story. 10 years of greatness, 430 chapters of awesome stuff. There's things you can nitpick, there's things you can say they could have done better, like I said, like the epilogue, but at the end of the day, this chapter does a really good job, in my opinion, on putting a bow on the series. It sets it up for a sequel if they choose to go down this route, and it's a love letter to the fans who have been invested in this manga for a decade. So, clap it up for My Hero Academia, guys. Clap it up. But that's about it for me. Let me know in the comment section what your guys' thoughts of it. Hopefully, everything made sense. Let me know your guys' opinion, what you guys think. But if you guys enjoyed this chapter, if you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like on it. Subscribe if you guys are new. Hit the bell ranks my name, Fitzpunk TV, so you guys are notified every time I post a new video. I will have some more My Hero Academia and some more anime content coming soon, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you guys once again for everything, man. I will see you guys later. Have a great day, guys. Peace.